Hi everyone. The sun is setting here in beautiful Cordoba, Argentina, and I just had my second class in Tracy Ash's Soul School. And if you watched the previous video on my class with Tracy Ash, she's the most amazing teacher, speaks on a very multi-dimensional level. And today's class, my learnings were very varied, but I took away what I need to work on personally, which I will share with you guys. But first of all, Tracy mentioned something really amazing, which is the soul delights in symbolism, myth, and mystery. And this is a great point because, as mentioned before, that's precisely why she doesn't talk in obvious language, in day-to-day language, because one, she's creating a new reality, a more correct reality, which by definition needs a more correct language. And so we should not be surprised when spiritual teachers speak in a language that we can't necessarily understand in 3D terms. But secondly, and particularly usefully, the soul delights in symbolism and in communicating in symbolism, because it enables the soul to express itself with clarity. And I thought that's so true and so beautiful, because the soul is so high dimensional, we can't even fathom sort of how complex, and by complex I mean simple, because that's the paradox, it is. And so symbolism is perhaps the best way in the 3D world that it can express itself, because symbolism is very mystical and complex, and again yet so simple. So that's symbolism, myth, and metaphor. And I think in society we run away from that, especially Western society, because Western society needs objectivity in the outer sense, but objectivity in the inner sense, in the soul sense, may well be uncertainty. So that's a paradox that it's worth not thinking through, but feeling through. And so Tracy says, don't strategize on the spiritual path. Don't create plans. And I mean, this is my interpretation. Don't create plans and strategies, because by definition, they are thought forms that are human creations and constructs, whereas the soul has its own unique sequence of events and contracts that it wants to experience and learn through. And rather than strategizing in the outer world sense of the world, outer world sense of the word, we need to actually do less and be still in silence and let the soul guide us in terms of what it wants to experience and learn. And when you do this, you come to a point of balance. This is the union that the word yoga means, where the Atma and the Brahma unify, where the soul and the outer world, the inner world and the outer world unify. And that sort of spiritual balance causes what Tracy calls a rising of the phoenix, which I really understood in my soul, because what happens is that you start to work in harmony with the universe and the natural laws of the universe. And that means the universe starts to work for you, rather than the situation where most people feel themselves in, where they're always running out of time. The universe is chaos. They're sort of being thrown around by the natural forces and winds of the world. But when you come into inner balance, you find outer balance, because the universe starts to work for you. And that's super exciting, but also it causes a sustainable spiritual practice, because you find value in the spiritual practice. It's creating, not, at first it creates inner world balance and harmony, and that's a good thing. But then you find it also creates outer world balance and harmony as a result, and that creates a motivation for your spiritual practice. And this creates a sort of virtuous cycle of progression that is sustainable. And in the last video, I talked about how in class we talked about spiritual procrastination in terms of not doing our daily practice. And this is really the remedy, where if you find that you're not doing a daily practice for long enough or just enough, it might be too long, and it certainly might be too difficult for your current status. So one solution is just to pare it back, do 5 minutes a day rather than half an hour a day, and build it up. And that 5 minutes should bear fruit that builds the motivation to keep doing the 5 minutes. And then you start to vary it, you start to add on time because you find it valuable, and that builds your motivation, which is the fuel for your Merkaba. And the Merkaba is another term for your bodily vehicle, body in both the physical and metaphysical sense. Because once you build the fuel, the motivation to spin your Merkaba, which means to activate the spaceship of your body, you can really start to go places and travel through space and time. So that's a lot to take in, I know, but let me also get to the concept of gateways, which Tracy talked about a lot. And I asked her, what does she mean by gateways? And what I understood was that, I'm just going to go down, I've got my laptop here and I made some notes. So when you're in balance, according to Tracy, the balance that we just talked about, the universe starts to work for you. Time and place are enhanced, contracts are progressed, and so you up-level your capacity to magnetize and materialize. I'm not sure about you guys on the spiritual path, but I've experienced this quite tangibly in many ways. When I'm not centered and I'm not balanced, the universe is not under my command. And like I say, to the rest of the world, the universe seems like chaos. But to us on the spiritual path, the universe is very, very orderly, very particular, and operates from natural spiritual laws. And so the question is, can we obtain inner balance to live in harmony with those spiritual laws and actually put them under our command? And it's not about control, it's just about moving like water through the pathways and timelines of the world. And so what are gateways in this context? Gateways are when you find this spiritual balance and harmony, you then come across these activation points. And they may be teachers, guides, books, they may be manifestations, they may be dreams, they may be spirit guides, but they're moments or things or creations or symbols that initiate, activate, and accelerate your progression. And you can access these gateways once you find balance. And so that's the divine path we're all walking through. There's a great saying, we're all walking each other home. And gateways are kind of like the, you're walking along a long path, and finally you come to a crossroads. And maybe there's 3 or 4 different possible paths, and you've been confused for a long time which one to take. And the gateway activates and gives you clarity of which path to take. And it helps accelerate you onto a new timeline. So that's gateways. Don't worry if you don't understand it. I'm just about understanding it myself. But last of all, I wanted to talk about the key learning for myself in this class. And it really came in the meditation. And Tracy's message, which is the perfect message, is that your service to the outer world, the extent of your service is the extent of your inner work. And so someone asked about what inner work precisely should they be doing. And the answer was actually very simple, which is, where do you find dissonance and issues in your day-to-day life? And keep it really simple. Sorry, I'll just turn off that notification. Yeah, keep it really simple. Like, what are the repeat patterns and problems and issues that keep coming up in your daily life? Is it that you're not treated with respect? Is it that in relationships you always break up in a certain way? Is it that you keep leaving your job early? what is the issue that is on your mind day to day, and that can be brought into your spiritual practice. And by the way, as Tracy mentioned, that's why your spiritual practice should always change. It shouldn't be the same, because you're solving different challenges as you go along. And so for me, what I realized, and for my company, we had a board meeting today with some really great investors. And what I realized is that in my business, we've been defining our target market for 5-6 years, really. We have sort of pivoted and not been certain about what is the target market. And there are good reasons for that. We have a very horizontal platform. We have 70,000 companies using the platform. And so with that amount and that volume of customers, you're going to get a whole range of different target markets and segments. But it is helpful to focus. And why haven't we been able to focus in all these years? And I realized, if I want to crack this problem, this conundrum, I have to look within, not without, not from the outside. And I have to focus within. So where am I in my own life unfocused, defocused? Where am I in my own life spread out with too many limbs and too many places? And I think one area is that my identity in the outer world and somewhat inner world is quite split. I've struggled for the last few years to define who I am on social media in terms of my personality. In particular, merging my spiritual side, my work side, and my other sides, like my passion for music and art. And it's been hard because, spirituality, as we all know, isn't that well accepted, but it is getting more and more accepted these days. And my work is very scientific and mathematical and rational. And by the way, I think actually spirituality is all of those things, but it may not be perceived that way. But now is the time where I have to be brave and unify all those things. Because if I can unify my inner world, then I have unlocked the gateway to unifying my outer world and my business. So that's my personal learning and my challenge. And hopefully through this, you might be able to find some tips for your own life. But for now, it's been a pleasure as always. And I'll see you in the next one.